Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is a groundbreaking series that dives into the lives of people living in the last frontier. Each episode introduces you to colorful characters from around the state. Funding for Indie Alaska is provided in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company. Catch the latest episodes at alaskapublic.org.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us here at KAKM for Thursday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. On the hazardous weather, we've got a winter weather advisory out here for the lower Koyukuk and middle Yukon Valley areas for an additional 2 to 5 inches of snow tonight, and then here down to the south there, we've got an additional 3 to 5 inches of snow expected tonight here, but that's north of Aniak. So winter weather advisories continue tonight for this area, and also winter weather advisory here for the Susitna Valley, looking for several more inches of snow there west of the Parks Highway, and also for the Copper River Basin, southern Copper River Basin, south of Copper Center, looking for a few more inches of snow tonight. So that advisory stays out until about 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. And then we've got wind advisories here for the western or the eastern Alaska range through the passes, and looking for gusts of 65 miles per hour through the passes there, but that's west of the Tok Cutoff, and that continues throughout the night tonight. Moving on to satellite imagery of the Northwest Pacific, Kamchatka Peninsula right here, and Shimia there, and we've got clouds gathering with the next low pressure area that's will be pushing into the southwest Bering Sea tonight and moving eastward tomorrow. Otherwise, another low back here to the southwest that will be coming in eastward and then pushing up toward the central Aleutians the next day. Otherwise, we've got low pressure here over the southeast Bering Sea, and you can get a little bit better look at that here, kind of revving its engines out here over Bristol Bay today. Good northwest winds coming around this way on the west side of that system, then back around to the southeast, and the main front pushing into the Gulf of Alaska. Northerly winds extending up through the Bering Strait to the eastern Arctic or the western Arctic coast here. They're mostly northeasterly in that area. A lot of high clouds spreading in over the Tanana valleys into the southern upper Yukon Valley areas, but some clearing there up over the northeast interior. And you can see the frontal system, clouds beginning to spread in here over the southeast coast with rain. Elfin Cove, some rain getting into Juneau later this afternoon, but the main rain area back from Yakutat into Cordova. Rain and snow today in Valdez, and areas of rain and snow, mostly rain across the Kenai Peninsula and then snow up the Susitna Valley there, extending back to the northwest there to Nome and the southern Seward Peninsula, and then some snow showers coming into the St. Lawrence Island area. And rolling that through again, the low pressure center tracking eastward there, just about south of Togiak Bay this afternoon, and then this next batch of clouds associated with that weather system pushing into the western Bering Sea. You can just see the warm front there crossing the Komodorsky Islands, higher pressure in over the western Aleutians in advance of that system, and then the strong northwest winds here gusting 50 to 60 miles per hour over the eastern Aleutians, and the Alaska Peninsula seeing west-northwesterlies in the 40 to 50 mile per hour range, and then 30 to 40 mile an hour winds up over the Pribilofs. A lot of showers back through here, spreading southward across the eastern Aleutians and the Alaska Peninsula. And Falls Pass here, southwest of Cold Bay, picking up 1 3/4 inches of rain in the last 24 hours. Otherwise, Seward, Seldovia, Kodiak, and Chignik all picked up over an inch of rain during that same time period, ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon. And then the rain spreading eastward to Yakutat and getting into the northern panhandle and also approaching the southwest coast. Had storm force winds ahead of this front today along the North Gulf Coast areas, with Middleton Island seeing gusts of 66 miles per hour, while Turnagain Arm seeing gusts from the east at 60 to 70 miles per hour, with heavy rain in toward Portage Glacier. And then the snow here in the Susitna Valley, again heaviest west of the Parks Highway, extending right up to the Seward Peninsula. Renome picked up a couple inches over the last 24 hours, and also some snow Kivalina and into Sishmaref there over the northwest interior, and the snow showers scattered about around St. Lawrence Island, and some fog and flurries over the eastern Arctic coast. Forecast for tonight, we'll see that next system entering the western Bering Sea there, with the frontal system mostly to the north of the western Aleutians. Strong northwest winds continue here across the Alaska Peninsula, and stays pretty windy over the eastern Aleutians as well. Storm warnings tonight out for Prince William Sound this evening until the front pushes through. Then those winds will diminish after midnight here as the gradient relaxes significantly. But wind and rain for the southeast coast tonight, possibly heavy at times, but nothing too serious there. And then some snow up in advance of this front. Just areas of light snow here over the eastern interior back through the Tanana Valley and to the west. Kind of a mixed precipitation pattern occurring over Cook Inlet and then back into the Copper River Basin. A swath of snow here from the Koyukuk Valley over to Selawik, possibly to Kotzebue, and then down along the Yukon Delta coast of St. Lawrence Island, with snow showers from the Bering Strait across St. Lawrence Island. Otherwise, basically dry here along the Arctic coast. There could be some patchy fog this evening on the east side, but generally precipitation free there, and possible clearing there with those offshore winds along the western coastal areas. Still pretty showery here over the eastern Aleutians. Colder air sliding southeastward, dropping that snowfall level close to sea level, but still looks like mixed rain and snow showers to the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay areas. And then for tomorrow, that front pushes eastward well into Canada there, trailing southward across Vancouver Island, but a low center in the Gulf of Alaska, southwest flow around that, keeping it wet here over the southeast coast with numerous showers and periods of rain extending along the North Gulf Coast as well. More of a mixed condition here again over the southern Copper River Basin. Scattered snow showers up over the Alaska Range, and then it looks like a pretty good band of light snow there from the upper Yukon Valley southwestward out to the deltas, Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. Scattered rain and snow showers, and still windy there for the Bristol Bay area in the Alaska Peninsula. Winds becoming westerly and lighter westerly winds. Still pretty brisk though for the eastern Aleutians, and lighter winds in store for the Alaska Peninsula. A chance of rain possibly reaching the Pribilof Islands tomorrow afternoon. Most of the precipitation of the system will stay back to the west and northwest with that low center. And this weak low here up over the eastern interior, again, most of that precipitation will be north and to the west of that center, and pretty gusty east and northeast winds there along the Arctic coast, with gale warnings out for the eastern Arctic coast tomorrow, and small craft advisories off to the west. Forecast for Saturday, this frontal system kind of lifts northeastward, and that next system comes across the Aleutians to about the Adak area Saturday afternoon. So it looks like possible gale force winds here with this system, and a lot of rain in that southwesterly flow spreading right up to the Pribilof Islands, with minimum gales just to the west of the islands, possibly reaching St. George. And then a mixture of rain and snow sweeping up across St. Lawrence Island, with that main low center back to the west a little bit there. Snow showers moving in and much colder air as it pulls into the western Aleutians. Otherwise, just some scattered snow showers here over the southwest interior, and mixed rain and snow here with mostly cloudy skies over the Kilbrook Range. Clouds on the increase, not looking for too much clearing here over the southwest coast. Pretty good chance of snow, light snow at times there from the western Arctic coast across the Brooks Range down into the northern Koyukuk Valley. And then kind of an upper level trough keeping it snowy there across the central interior or the Tanana Valley on down into the eastern Copper River Basin. Low pressure off the coast. Again, a lot of precipitation, but it winds not all that strong here. just 20 knots here along the coast in the forecast, with periods of rain and showers and cloudy skies from the Queen Charlotte's all the way up to Skagway and back across Yakutat. But it looks like partly sunny or partly to mostly sunny weather here for south central Alaska, especially east and south of the Alaska Range. Mostly cloudy for the Copper River Basin, mostly sunny there for Kodiak Island with pretty strong northwest winds. Gale force winds here along the eastern side of the island there. A little bit lighter, but still small craft advisories, but winds diminishing throughout the afternoon as this high pressure ridge slides to the east. Temperatures this afternoon, mostly in the 40s here for the North Gulf Coast, but 32 at Anchorage, 36 in Kenai, 46 down at Homer, 32 this afternoon at Talkeetna, 33 at Gulkana. Southeast coast, mostly in the mid to upper 40s there, but Juneau just 39 degrees with some light rain. 27 there at Minchumina. Otherwise, Delta looking at 26 degrees. Fairbanks had 29. And in the 20s here through the Koyukuk Valley with teens through the Brooks Range. And kind of a range here along the Arctic coast. Temperatures ranging from 10 at Kaktovik to 21 at Barrow. And Cape Lisburne at 26 degrees today, right at the frost point there for both Buckland and Kotzebue, as well as Shishmaref, and lower to mid-30s here for the southern coast of the Seward Peninsula. McGrath had 31 today, mostly in the upper 30s off to the southwest, with Amonic and St. Mary's both at 34. Lower 40s here for the Pribilof Islands, lower to mid-40s for the Aleutians, and in the 40s for the Alaska Peninsula into Bristol Bay. Lows tonight, upper 30s to mid-40s here for the southeast coast, and lower 30s here over south central Alaska, lower to mid-30s along the southwest coast, warmer along the Alaska Peninsula and the Aleutians with lows near 40. 3 degrees, a forecast low at Arctic Village, otherwise teens for the Arctic coast, 20s back over the northwest interior. And for the highs tomorrow, in the teens across the North Slope and the Arctic coast, as well as the Brooks Range, and then 20s to lower 30s over the Tanana Valley area. Mid-30s for the Yukon and Kuskokwim Delta, lower 40s for Bristol Bay, upper 30s south central Alaska, mid-40s along the North Gulf Coast and the Panhandle. And for flying weather tomorrow, we've got marginal VFR here across the southeast coast with IFR from about Yakutat over to roughly Cordova. Otherwise, pretty marginal for Prince William Sound and the Kenai Peninsula up across the Talkeetnas, with marginal VFR possible there along the Arctic coast and locally inland over the North Slope. That'll extend southward through the strait to St. Lawrence Island, down along the coastline. VFR, Kodiak Island, the Alaska Peninsula, with that moisture coming eastward, that next system spreading some marginal VFR, possibly as far east as the Pribilofs and maybe as far south as the Fox Islands. Looking at the passes, Anatuvik, marginal VFR. Adigan, same forecast. Lake Clark and Merrill, occasionally marginal. Rainy, marginal VFR. Windy, looks pretty good VFR there. Isabel should be VFR as well as Mentasta. Tonita, though, marginal VFR, lowest on the eastern entrance. And for Portage, marginal VFR. Chilkoot and White looking marginal. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet here from the just south of the Pribilofs up across Kuskokwim Bay, cutting eastward along the North Gulf Coast and over the northern Panhandle, and then about 6,000 feet down over the southern southeast coast, and then warmer conditions out over the southwest Bering and the Aleutians. Looking at icing tomorrow of the isolated moderate rime icing here for the southeast coast, back across Prince William Sound and a short distance into the Copper River Basin, below about 12,000 feet. Another area of icing up over the northeast interior, back to down the Kuskokwim River Valley to the deltas there, maybe eastern Norton Sound. That looks to be below about 9,000 feet, and then another batch of icing sliding eastward here, again approaching the Pribilofs. Most of the bulk of that moisture will stay north of the eastern Aleutians and really out in the Bering Sea. And for the winds aloft, big upper level low, that low over Bristol Bay today is going to track up into the eastern interior tomorrow. That's going to keep the jet well to the south, but it curves back up southwest, 120 knots over the southern Panhandle. And at 9,000 feet, 30 to 35 knot winds from the north increase to 50 knots here across Bristol Bay and the Alaska Peninsula, 45 knots there across Kodiak Island. And then back around to the south and southwest at the 30 to 40 knots in across the eastern Gulf of Alaska and northern Panhandle, with the Arctic coast seeing easterlies 25 to as high as 40 knots there on the east side. 20 to 35 knot winds at 3,000 feet up that way along the coast, with lighter, more variable conditions over the central and eastern interior right down into the Gulf of Alaska. But that strong northwest wind here, 35 to 50 knots, highest here across the Alaska Peninsula, cutting in near and just south of Kodiak Island, and pretty good westerlies or west-southwesterlies out over the Aleutians. And turbulence-wise, look for some occasional moderate chop here over the northern panhandle with those gusty south winds. Otherwise, light to isolated moderate chop down toward Dixon Entrance. Moderate chop here, southern Kodiak Island along the Alaska Peninsula, northwest along the southwest coast to about Cape Romanzoff. Pretty moderate there from the Bering Strait to St. Lawrence Island, as well as the area from Point Lay to about Point Hope. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Two frogs hopping and 3 planets wandering. Hey there, stargazers. I'm Dean Regas, astronomer for the Cincinnati Observatory.
And I'm James Albury, director of the Kika Silva Pla Planetarium in Gainesville, Florida. We're here to help you find your way around the sky. Hey Dean, did you know that we have 3, count them, 3 planets visible in the eastern sky before dawn?
Before dawn, as in 6 a.m., setting an alarm, getting out of bed before any human rightly should?
Yep.
I'll look for them, but I won't like it. And then I can tell everyone about the 2 frogs in the evening sky.
What? Frogs?
Let's show you. Okay, we're in the pre-dawn skies facing east-southeast on Monday, November 9th. It may be 6 a.m., but wow, what a view. Just as James said, we have 3 planets in the sky. 2 of them really bright, and 1 is little, faint, and red.
I didn't wake you up for nothing. First, the brightest and closest of the 3 planets to us is Venus. Venus is so incredibly bright, people often mistake it for a plane, satellite, or UFO.
Venus is over 70 million miles away from us this week, which seems far, but that's nothing compared to the next planet in line. Small, cute, red, dim, distant Mars. This week, Mars is almost 200 million miles away.
On November 9th, Venus and Mars appear about 3 degrees apart. Let's zoom in and see how they'll wander next week. Venus and Mars will appear closest on the morning of November 3rd, less than 1 degree apart. But since they're planets, they'll wander.
Watch how they shift on the 4th and the 5th. Planets move differently than the background stars like Zabba there. On the 6th, Zabba will appear really close to Venus, and then on the 7th, the moon joins the party.
You love saying Zabba, don't you?
Zabba.
Anyway, here's the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. Venus and Mars have spread out and they're leaving Zabba behind.
The final planet in our early morning lineup may be the second brightest, but it is by far the farthest of the 3. That's Jupiter, which shines with a steady cream-colored light. It's well over 500 million miles away.
Luckily, it's a big planet, and with a pair of binoculars, you can make out the 4 largest moons as little dots to the left or right of the planet. And through a telescope, that's where Jupiter comes alive. You can see cloud bands running parallel with the 4 moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. And maybe, just maybe, if you have a steady night and a big enough telescope, you can spy the Great Red Spot.
We'll be seeing Jupiter in the morning sky for months. It will rise earlier every morning until it becomes more visible in the evening skies next March.
So now that we got the morning planets out of the way, Dean, tell me about these frogs of yours.
Okay, there are no official frog constellations.
Ah, I knew it.
But the Arabic astronomers had froggy nicknames for 2 stars you can see in the southern sky. Let's hop to the southern horizon and I'll show you. Okay, we have our sky set to 9:30 p.m. this week facing south. There you'll see the bright first magnitude and fun to pronounce star Fomalhaut. Officially, Fomalhaut is the brightest star in the cute constellation Piscis Australis, the southern fish.
Oh, it looks a little like a goldfish.
Yes, but the Arabic nickname for this star was the first frog. The second frog would be the star to the left or east of Fomalhaut, the star called Deneb Katos.
Officially, AKwx is the tail star of the not-so-cute constellation Cetus the Sea Monster.
But unofficially, this is the second frog who rises after Fomalhaut and trails behind the brighter star as they complete their nightly journey. When we set the Earth in motion, the stars seem to move from east to west.
Look at them hop across the sky. So, every morning before sunrise, look for stunning Venus, dimmer and redder Mars, and brilliant Jupiter.
And at a more reasonable evening hour, find the two frog stars low in the south, Fomalhaut and AKwx. Keep looking up.
When Tropical Storm Allison hit Houston in 2001, 16 of the 22 people who died were in their cars. Many more narrowly escaped.
And I started coming over this way and drove right into the ditch. Didn't know it was a ditch, thought it was the road.
As little as 2 feet of water is enough to float a vehicle. It's often difficult for drivers to assess the depth of the water and whether the roadbed has been washed away, which may create a hidden drop-off. If a car stalls, it can quickly be pushed downstream.
Why are people driving into these flooded low water crossing areas, and why aren't they avoiding them?
In the San Angelo, Texas National Weather Service office, Hector Guerrero met with local rescue workers to draw up a publicity campaign to combat the problem. They came up with the phrase, "Turn around, don't drown."
Anybody can come up with an idea, and thank God we came up with one we think that's effective and it's already helping to save lives.
In 2003, the phrase was adopted by the National Weather Service, the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes, and other partners as a national safety campaign.
We're developing public service announcements. Turn around. We've developed posters, we've developed brochures. We've even worked with the National Safety Council and the Department of Transportation's Federal Highway Administration to develop a new road sign.
The sign is bright pink and has begun to show up at low water crossings across the country.
Can you tell me one thing that you do remember about what we talked about in our last class?
Turn around, don't drown.
Turn Around, Don't Drown is now being taught in schools across the country, with the hope of influencing the next generation of drivers.
Water is really strong. I wouldn't take any risks.
The hopes behind the education efforts are high, because this tragedy never has to happen. For the Weather Channel, I'm meteorologist Nick Walker.
Here's today's sea ice analysis, and the forecast is for north to northeast winds to continue across the Chukchi Sea for the next several days, and the ice edge over the next 4 or 5 days is forecast to move west and southwest at about 20 to 40 nautical miles. Moving on to the coastal forecast here, small craft advisories here for the southeast coast as well as the inside waters there with southerlies up to 30 knots. For northern Lynn Canal with 6-foot seas, otherwise seas running 15 to 17 feet out along the coast. And then lighter winds here for Saturday, but still looking at small craft advisories due to the high seas above 7 feet. And southerlies at about 15 knots for Lynn Canal, but still looking at small craft advisories for Stevens Passage. And for the Prince William Sound, again after the storm warnings this evening, much lighter winds in store for tomorrow with northeast at 10. Variable at 10 for northern Cook Inlet, but increasing as you head south here. Northwesterlies 40 knots across Kamishak Bay with gale warnings Kodiak Island and the Barrens with small craft advisories for the western North Gulf Coast. And for Saturday, we've got full gales here for the Barren Islands back into Kamishak Bay and the east side of Kodiak Island. Winds diminishing to 30 knots there for Shelikof Strait. Small craft advisories from the North Gulf Coast. Northwest 20 knots, higher gusts out of bays and passes there for Prince William Sound, and northwest 10 for northern Cook Inlet. Bristol Bay looks like, gale warnings all across the area here. 35 to 40 knot northwesterlies with higher gusts for the peninsula tomorrow, and 45 knots from the northwest there southwest of Kodiak Island. Bristol Bay northwest at 40. Those diminish and become westerly down to 20 knots on Saturday. Small craft advisories for the Alaska Peninsula. And for the eastern Aleutians, gales, westerlies at 35 knots. Otherwise, from the central Aleutians all the way out to the west there, we're looking at westerlies or west-southwesterlies at 30. And then for the next day, again, that front coming to about this position here, so gales 35 to 40 knot winds there across Adak and Atka. Small craft advisories from the west behind the front, and 25 to 35 knot winds there for the eastern Aleutians with 9 to 12 foot seas. Southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, northwest 40, northwest 30, north of the island, becoming more northerly there at St. Lawrence Island. Winds diminishing to west at 20 knots for the Pribilofs. And then for the next day here, we've got 30 knot winds increasing to 30 knots from the south-southwest St. Matthew Island and the Pribilofs, and south to southwest 20 to 25 knots for the coast. Eastern Arctic coast, easterlies at 35 knots there for the extreme east side. Otherwise, small craft advisories, or actually these are brisk wind advisories for the central coast. Small craft advisories for the western coast with those 30 knot winds there from Cape Thompson to Wales. And then for Saturday, brisk wind advisories for the eastern and central coast. Small craft advisories continue here for the west side. Northerlies diminishing to 20 knots. Rain and wind here for the southeast coast tonight. Less wind later this evening after the storm warnings in Prince William Sound this evening with periods of rain, areas of snow up here to the northwest, still gusty winds out over the Alaska Peninsula, and that low in the Gulf of Alaska keeps it wet over the Panhandle. Pretty good chance of snow here. Upper Yukon Valley back to the southwest, and that next system moving into the Bering Sea brings some pretty good wind and rain into the Pribilof Islands. That will be pushing up towards St. Lawrence Island late in the day. Chance of snow up here over the northern interior, partly sunny south central Alaska.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.